deal with you.
When negotiation and compromise fail, and your only course is to destroy your enemy.
My own daughter defies me.
Before they wake in the morning,
Always you with the bad news.
have the axe in your hand.
The new series of Wolf Hall, The Mirror and the Light, starts next Sunday at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Two games on tonight's match of the day two. Aston Villa travelled to North London to take on Tottenham, and at Old Trafford it was Manchester United's first league game since Eric Ten Hag was sacked as they played Chelsea. We'll have October's goal of the month and all of yesterday's goals with Danny Murphy and Phil Jones after the news.
Now your late evening BBC News with Clive Myrie in Milwaukee and Jane Hill in the studio.
At 10, with less than 48 hours until the polls open, the US presidential race is on a knife edge. In the final push for votes, Kamala Harris is spending the day in the crucial swing state of Michigan.
I see a nation determined to turn the page on hatred and division and chart a new way forward.
While Donald Trump's been campaigning in Pennsylvania.
They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing. But this is all you need to know. Kamala broke it, and we will fix it, and we're going to fix it fast.
And in the rest of tonight's news, frustration boils over in flood-hit Valencia as angry crowds hurl abuse and mud at the visiting King of Spain.
This is just unprecedented. I mean, people are picking up mud, throwing it at the king. The depth of anger here, fury, is just extraordinary to see.
On her first full day in the job, the Conservative leader tells the BBC her approach to the economy would be completely opposite to Labour's. And Max Verstappen's on the brink of becoming Formula One world champion after winning in the rain in Sao Paulo.
Good evening to you from a wet and windy Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And I have to say, it would be a very brave person indeed trying to predict the outcome of the US presidential election. This is one of the 7 pivotal swing states that will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becomes the 47th president. And with less than 48 hours to go before the polls open, both candidates are pushing hard for every single last vote in what the pollsters are saying is one of the closest presidential races in history. And here's what those national polls look like. On average, as you can see, Kamala Harris's early lead now down to a single point. Well, one poll, however, overnight in the Republican stronghold of Iowa is causing concern in Donald Trump's camp. Last night, Kamala Harris also made a surprise appearance on the late-night satirical show Saturday Night Live. Well, Sarah Smith has the very latest on the campaigns from the key battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Kamala. It is nice to see you, Kamala.
Popping up on late-night television, Kamala Harris projected confidence about her prospects, as well as the ability to take a joke.
I don't really laugh like that, do I? A little bit.
She's back on the campaign trail today with multiple stops in Michigan. Donald Trump is hitting 3 different key states, claiming that Democrats are trying to steal the election.
They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing. It's a damn shame, and I'm the only one that talks about it because everyone's afraid to damn talk about it. And then they accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist.
He is behaving increasingly erratically. Kamala Harris says he's becoming unhinged, pointing to moments like this.
Hello? Is that better? Is that better?
When he got angry about a broken mic and resorted to physical gestures instead. Thousands of women marched through Washington this weekend supporting Kamala Harris as a surprise poll suggested she may be ahead in the reliably Republican state of Iowa, with a very large lead among female voters. For people who live in battleground states like Pennsylvania, this election is overwhelming. They are subjected to a deluge of political advertising. Nearly $1 billion has been spent on campaign ads across the US in just the last week alone. In the key swing state of Pennsylvania, the annual Strasbourg 1940s swing dance is in full flow. It's particularly women in these states that the Harris campaign is counting on. They're even running ads saying you don't have to tell your husband how you voted. Issues like abortion bans do seem to be driving up female support for Democrats. There's a really big gender divide. Why do you think that would be?
I think a lot of that comes back to the healthcare issue. Women are the ones who are living every day with the results of what the access to healthcare is.
Do you feel Donald Trump's personality, some of the things he says, are off-putting, particularly to women voters?
Oh, well, yeah, because he represents what has haunted every woman for most of her life. Down the street, getting catcalled, not being taken seriously.
We are Penn State! The men are showing their colours with the Trump flags on display at the Penn State College football game. Polls suggest Donald Trump already has the support of most men, and he's making a particular push for young male voters.
Trump's appeal is he's every man's dream. He says what is truthful and honest, whether you want to hear it or I want to hear it, whether it's appropriate or not.
I think he's the person to restore confidence in our country, to the world, and to the people that are here.
Donald Trump's distinctive macho style may appeal to these guys, but risks turning off female voters, whom he also needs to attract, as men just don't turn out to vote as often as women do. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For people who live in battleground states like Pennsylvania, this election is overwhelming. They are subjected to a deluge of political advertising. Nearly $1 billion has been spent on campaign ads across the US in just the last week alone.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith, our North America editor there. We're always banging on about these swing states, aren't we? And frankly, it's a bit weird in a country where roughly 244 million people are actually eligible to vote. It does seem a bit odd that we're always focusing mainly on 7 key battleground states, the so-called swing states. Well, my colleague Christian Fraser now explains why.
The winner of the popular vote on election night does not necessarily win the White House. To become the next president, one of these 2 candidates will need to win the Electoral College. There are 538 electors divided across the 50 states. California, the biggest of them all, has 54 electors. A state like Florida, the 3rd biggest, has 30. It is a race to 270. Now, what you need to know is that there are 43 states that we can probably allocate ahead of time. Those in red are Republican, those in blue, Democratic, which leaves us with 7 battleground states. Kamala Harris has 21 different paths to the White House through these 7 states. But the simplest route is probably through areas where traditionally they've been strong. The Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And so long as they win the 2nd congressional district in Nebraska, Omaha, that would get her to 270. What about Donald Trump? Well, certainly he needs to do better in the South. He would need to hold on to North Carolina. He would need to win Georgia and Arizona. And even if he became the first Republican presidential candidate to win Nevada since 2004, that would leave him short. He still needs one of the Midwest states. But he will take confidence from 2016. The blue wall crumbled. He won all 3 of those Midwest states. In 2020, they reverted back to blue. Joe Biden won each of these states, but by the slenderest of margins. Wisconsin, he won by 20,000 votes, Michigan by 155,000, and Pennsylvania by 81,000. And if it is as tight as that on Tuesday night, I must warn you, we will be waiting for a result.
Christian Fraser there on the importance of the swing states. Well, Milwaukee here is reported to be the brewing capital of the world, probably because it's so wet. And it's synonymous with beer, this place, and home to 4 of America's largest breweries. So what better place could there be to gauge the mood of voters on the most important issue of the election, the economy, than in a pub?
At the oldest family-run bar in Milwaukee,
How'd it go over there?
everybody knows your name. This is Craig.
In my mind, I'm a celebrity.
And Angela.
Excuse me, is that a Bournemouth shirt?
Steve.
Bournemouth. AFC Bournemouth. Up the cherries.
Where's your pint?
I'm working.
And Rob.
Do you know what makes everybody happy in America? Money.
Regulars enjoying a jar on the weekend. The economy is the #1 issue in the presidential election. And while inflation's raised the cost of a pint here under Joe Biden by around $1,
There you go.
elections are about more than statistics and numbers. They're about feelings and emotions. America's economy is on target for yet more growth, but many aren't feeling good about their own circumstances. Bartender Angela is undecided which candidate to choose and philosophical about the economy.
Do I want to pay less for gas? Yes. Do I want to pay less in taxes? Yes. But it is what it is, and you do what you need to do to make a daily living, I guess.
Craig, a Democrat and aerospace engineer, thinks the economy has hit the jackpot for jobs, and it suits the likes of Donald Trump to play down the success.
I'm doing okay, and a lot of people I talk to are doing okay.
Why do you think people believe that it's not doing so well?
A lot of fake news, I guess. Or maybe they, in their personal life, aren't making as much, or everybody's economy is a very personal issue. So I can't speak to how America feels. I can speak to how I feel, and me and my friends think it's fine.
At halftime in the football game on the bar's TVs, more campaign ads.
Donald Trump cares about his billionaire friends.
Overall, much of Kamala Harris's campaign has focused on women voters.
So how are you going to vote?
I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
But Taylor Madison, who's 23, isn't won over by the Democrats' economic record.
The price of gas has gone up over $1 here. The price of groceries, I just feel like everything has kind of gone up. And I understand that with times changing, everything must go up, but it's just going up at a lot higher rate than it was in the past.
But what about our Bournemouth fan, Stephen? He's in PR and thirsty, and says the roaring US stock market can create a false impression about economic strength. But there's more going on.
90% of people aren't in the stock market, so that's a red herring. But all the other indicators, wages are up, employment is up, opportunities are up, all those things. That is it.
Nothing's up.
Dude.
I don't care about that.
Dude.
So, let's talk about it.
Dude.
Let's have a debate. I don't
Seriously?
care about cameras.
Remember Rob? He's voting for Donald Trump.
So let's actually have a conversation about this. Where are your wages up?
This, America's election debate.
No. Let's talk about your points that you just actually said. Wages are up. Where are the wages up?
Red in tooth and claw.
There you go. It's not just in the bars where they're having a bit of a Barney over the election, because the battle on social media is as fierce as it is anywhere else. Donald Trump's views dominate Elon Musk's platform X, formerly known as Twitter, of course, but on TikTok, it's Kamala Harris who's trending. Mariana Spring is live in Washington for us. Now, Mariana, what's the significance of social media in this race?
Thank you so much, Clive. I've been investigating the social media feeds of one fictional character. She's my undecided voter, and she's one of several undercover voters I run. They're based on data, and they allow me to interrogate what different people are being recommended on social media. They're private, and they don't have any friends. So let me tell you about this undecided voter. Her name's Gabriella. She's in her 40s. She's not sure about whether or how to vote. She's Latina, and she's seeing very different things on the different social media sites, even though I've expressed similar preferences in both places. She wasn't really into politics before, but now on X, she's being recommended loads of posts from Donald Trump supporters, often showing standout moments from the campaign, and then also some unfounded allegations of voter fraud, for example, often reshared by X's owner, Elon Musk. on TikTok, it's a really different story. She's seeing lots of montages of Kamala Harris. Often they're clips that are being shown from rallies, set to music, quite positive clips. She's also seeing other clips, for example, one of a comedian at Madison Square Gardens making comments about Puerto Rico that have gone really viral. Why does this matter? Well, I think it tells us how, even if you're someone who's not that into politics, you can't escape it online. And you're seeing very different things. What you decide to do on election day could really depend according to which site you prefer to look at.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Mariana Spring there. Well, let's get a final word now from Sarah Smith, our North America editor. Less than 2 days to go, Sarah. What's your sense of how the election campaign, how it's been going?
Well, there was a fascinating poll that's really upset quite a lot of people out of Iowa, which suggests that that state, which Donald Trump won twice, could be won by Kamala Harris this time against all expectations. Now, it's just one poll. It could be completely wrong, but it's being taken quite seriously because it was conducted by a very respected pollster. And it's just possible that what she has detected is a late shift towards Kamala Harris that could be repeated in other parts of the country, and mainly down to women and older voters over 65 expressing a preference for her. But here's another thing to think about. As all the last-minute campaigning is going on, for a lot of people it won't make any difference at all. Because of early voting in the States, 76 million people have already cast their ballots. That is almost half the total number of people who voted in the 2020 election. So it's possible there's going to be a record turnout this year.
Indeed. All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith there, a North America editor reporting. And of course, there's lots more US election coverage right across the BBC, including on the big night. Katrina Perry and Sumi Somaskanda will be bringing all the developments to you as they happen. And on BBC One and on iPlayer. The BBC's live page will have all the results as they come in too, and across the BBC's radio networks, Nuala McGovern and Ros Atkins will bring you live coverage and analysis. And for in-depth analysis and coverage, don't forget the Americast podcast is also available whenever you like on BBC Sounds. Well, that's it from a wet and windy Milwaukee. BBC Breakfast will be live from Washington, D.C. this week, starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'll be back tomorrow at 6 and 10 as we reach the final stages of the race for the White House. Now, back to you, Jane, in the studio.
Clive, for now, thank you. King Felipe of Spain has said he understands the anger and frustration of people in the Valencia region who were hit by last week's floods. Hours earlier, he'd cut short a visit to the area after angry crowds had shouted and pelted him with mud. There's been huge criticism of the late warning of the torrential rains, in which 214 people are known to have died. Mark Lowen reports from Valencia.
Spain's despair is boiling over. King Felipe came to Paiporta, ground zero of the carnage, along with the region's president, accused of failing to warn of the floods and of a desperately slow response. The chant, murderer. The anger grows. A protester attacks our camera. And then they hurl what they can find from the torrents below.
This is just unprecedented. I mean, people are picking up mud, throwing it at the king. The depth of anger here and fury is just extraordinary to see.
Queen Letizia is with mud on her face, her bodyguard bloodied. There are still dead people inside Paiporta, the woman screams. The royals stay, comforting some. Felipe, do what you can, says this man. We need the army. The anguish of the people echoed on Leticia's face. I'm just 16, he says. We're helping and the leaders do nothing. People are still dying. I can't stand this anymore. I have no strength left. They left us to die, she tells me. When we needed them, they weren't here. We've lost everything. Our businesses, our homes, our dreams. and others have lost family, like Rafa, who owned a print shop with his 2 brothers, which is now a wreck. As the waters rose, his brother Tony stayed inside to take refuge. Tony's body was found a street away, his 3 sons now without a father.
We are outraged. This is a great country, but with disgusting, incompetent leaders. I'm so angry I can't talk anymore. I don't have the strength to speak about my brother. He was a really good person. I have no more words. I'm sorry.
It is, frankly, hard to take in the apocalyptic scale of this destruction. To get Paiporta alone back on its feet, the homeless rehoused in shelter, damage reimbursed, could take months. But then repeat that for mile after mile of this stricken region. Spain, stunned, traumatized, furious, comforted only by the solidarity of the people. Today, the spark was ignited here, and as the number of dead rises further and the depth of loss becomes deeper, this country is at a delicate moment. Mark Lowen, BBC News, Valencia.
In her first media appearance as Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch has said her approach to the economy would be completely opposite to that of Labour's. She was on the BBC's Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, as was the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who argued that her budget this week had brought stability to the public finances. Here's Ian Watson.
Have you got a lot of work to do, Miss Badenoch? Can you unite the party behind you?
She's a new Conservative leader who's promising to drive her defeated party down the long road back to power.
A massive week for both of you.
Kemi Badenoch sat beside the Labour Chancellor today, but she was keen to emphasise that they weren't politically close.
Thinking about the economy in a different way, in my view, is going to be completely the opposite of what Rachel Reeves is doing. Raising taxes in this way, whether it's employer NI or elsewhere, is not going to grow our economy.
And despite not making many specific policy commitments during her leadership campaign, she has pledged to scrap Labour's VAT on private school fees.
That is a tax on aspiration. Taxing education is wrong. It is against our principles.
She said Conservative governments had got some things wrong too, and drew an interesting lesson from lockdown.
A lot of the stuff that happened around Partygate, I thought that it was overblown. We should not have created fixed penalty notices, for example. That was us not going with our principles.
It now feels as though the political battle lines are even more clearly defined than at the last general election. Kemi Badenoch says that the tax burden has been too high under the last Conservative government. And she says the size of the state needs to reduce. Rachel Reeves, on the other hand, seems to be increasing it. She's argued that raising billions from businesses from national insurance is essential to improve public services, and the Chancellor isn't for turning.
I'm not immune to their criticism, but we've got to raise the money. We've got to put our public finances on a firm footing and also fund our NHS properly. So the package we announced this week includes 40,000 additional appointments every single week in the NHS, more teachers in our schools and more homes being built.
Rachel Reeves argues that her budget wasn't ideological. She's insisting she was forced into tax rises that she hadn't planned before polling day.
Not at all. There was no discussion, no consideration.
No, this was not something that was on the agenda before the election.
Well, it's certainly on the agenda now. The clear blue water between the main political parties at Westminster is likely to persist during this Parliament, and when the new Conservative leader unveils more policies, the divisions could widen and deepen. Ian Watson, BBC News.
In Formula One, Max Verstappen is on the brink of a fourth world title after winning the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. After starting 17th on the grid, he battled through driving rain to put him on the verge of securing the Drivers' Championship. It was a disappointing day for his main rival, Lando Norris, who'd started on pole. And that takes us to a look at the weather prospects. Matt Taylor is here. Hello.
Hi, Jane. Just in case you're forgetting what blue sky, sunshine was, has been a terribly grey weekend, hasn't it? Well, here's just a reminder. This was the northeast of Scotland this evening in Aberdeenshire. It's been a beautiful day with barely a cloud in the sky for many. But whilst we've got cloud elsewhere, optimistic a few more sunny breaks later this week across the country as the breeze picks up. And that breeze, as it comes from the south, is going to bring ever milder weather and a largely frost-free week. The main exception to that probably tonight, where you've seen the sunshine today in the northeast of Scotland. Could get down to around 2 or 3 Celsius here. But for most, your Monday morning commute will be another fairly mild one. And yes, another rather grey one. 1 or 2 light showers possible out towards the west, but with a southeasterly breeze, the cloud trapped under this area of high pressure, well, that cloud could just break up a little bit in the west to allow some sunny breaks. More cloud though northeast Scotland tomorrow compared with the weekend. Maybe a bit more sunshine, East Anglia and some southern counties of England. Your temperatures, though, very similar to what we've been used to, around 11 to 14 degrees. Now, the high-pressure system that's been with us is still there to the east on Tuesday, but as this weather system starts to get closer, it's not going to have a direct impact, but it will stiffen the breeze out in the west and around these Irish Sea coasts. Could turn quite misty and damp at times through the afternoon. That southerly wind will help break up the cloud a bit more again across Scotland, so some sunnier spells here, and we might just see the odd brighter break elsewhere. Temperatures starting to creep up a little bit. Then, as we go into the evening, after a mild day, a mild night, and a little bit of colour in the skies after a fairly grey day. Most places staying dry for bonfire night, and many will stay dry for the rest of this week. High pressure still close by, but as this next weather system closes in into Thursday, that strengthening wind will bring much milder air, maybe up to around 17 or 18 around Inverness and the Moray Firth. Temperatures in all the capital cities up later in the week, but still a bit of mist and fog and low cloud through the next few days. Jane.
All right, Matt, thank you very much, Matt Taylor. And that is the BBC News at 10. Now it's time for the very latest, wherever you are, from the team here. Good night.
A large protest in London, not about the budget, not about politics. This was about water. Good evening, I'm Assad Ahmed. Thousands of people have been marching through central London to demand action on cleaning up our rivers and seas. Among the demands are for stricter punishments for water companies who break the rules and to review the regulator Ofwat. Well, at today's protest were some well-known faces too, as Layla Hayes reports.
Dressed in blue to create a human sea of people, fighting to have their voices heard.
Everyone marching here today wants urgent action to protect our rivers and waterways, and they say unless more is done, the water quality crisis will only get worse.
We're teaching people to be frightened of rivers and not go near them, which is a horrible lesson. We should be teaching children to love rivers.
Do you at some point in the future, if you're lucky enough to grow old, want a younger person to come up and tap you on the knee and ask you what you were doing when it really needed to count? And if you can't say I was doing everything I can, then your conscience is going to be burdened. I don't want to be in that position. That's why I'm standing here today.
What do we want? Clean water! When do we want it? Now!
Clean Up the River Brent wants an end to water pollution and to sewage being pumped into our rivers.
There's been mismanagement for decades, and we really want people to start recognising that these rivers are an asset. Here in London, there is huge defence against climate change, very huge defence around other environmental issues, and they bring health and well-being to our citizens.
And it's amazing to be here at the heart of London with so many other rivers represented, and that's why today is so important. It's not just us, it's not just London.
Not at all.
It's a clarion call to all the rivers from around the UK, and it's amazing to see so many people, isn't it, Bob?
The government says it has launched the biggest review of the water sector since privatisation. But campaigners here say much more needs to be done to protect our waters for future generations. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
Police are tonight appealing for information as to the whereabouts of a 31-year-old artist who they say vanished yesterday morning in Camden. This is Sarah Cunningham. She currently has an exhibition on at the Lisson Gallery in Marylebone. She was last seen on Jamestown Road near Camden Market, wearing a black top, black skirt and black Converse trainers. An off-duty Metropolitan Police officer has been stabbed while trying to stop a robbery in Luton. Bedfordshire Police say it happened on George Street yesterday afternoon. Two men stole a moped while brandishing a large knife or machete at the rider before stabbing the off-duty policeman who tried to intervene. Well, police describe the officer's actions as heroic. His injuries aren't life-threatening. Transport for London has apologised for ongoing issues with all escalators at Cutty Sark Station in Greenwich. It's one of the busiest stations on the DLR network and the escalators are being repaired, but in the meantime passengers are having to use 121 steps to get up and down to the platform, causing problems for pregnant women, disabled, elderly and sick commuters. A small lift is in operation. Halloween, Guy Fawkes Night and Diwali have been celebrated this weekend, and today thousands of Sikhs were on the streets of Southall to celebrate the birth of Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism. There was free food and drink for everybody who was out, regardless of their race or religion. And a great atmosphere. Now the weather with Joanna.
A very good evening to you. Well, it was another cloudy day for many of us across the capital, and tonight all that cloud will still remain in the forecast. First thing tomorrow morning it's going to feel rather mild, lows between 7 and 9 degrees Celsius, but any mist and murk that we have will begin to slowly clear in the afternoon. You'll notice there may be the odd pocket of sunshine for those in eastern areas, but highs of 14 degrees Celsius. And as for the rest of the week, it looks like the fog and the mist is back in the forecast, but temperatures are climbing towards the end of the week.
That's it. Hope you stay with us in the week ahead. On behalf of my BBC London colleagues, have a very good night. Bye-bye.
Waits, the next chapter is being written, and the outcome could change everything. With expert analysis and updates, we'll break it all down as America decides on one of the most important nights in global politics.
So you must get out and vote. You have to go and vote.
But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a tight race until the very end.
There is only one place to be as history unfolds.
US election results night, Tuesday at 10:40 on BBC One and iPlayer.
MasterChef The Professionals.